were you able to see any similarities with the trail and what you consider what the spiritual director might be? So I wrote down some things here. Inspires us, prepares us. I like what the person said that sometimes somebody on the trail, you see through different eyes, so you may see the other person may see things that you miss. What are the pitfalls to avoid? So what are the things to do, but maybe the things not to do? Advice for getting off the path. We're somewhere out in limbo someplace, and we got off the path. Somebody to help us get back on. Remedies for personal injuries. So, somebody was hurt. Not just physically on the trail, but in life. So, somebody to be with you.
But don't you also, as a spiritual God, you said, be very cautious at all times, not to put your personal. Sometimes I feel like recently there was an incident at a conference where I personally felt that the individual that was conducting it put her personal moral over onto another person that was learning and coming into the faith, which could have deterred this individual. So sometimes we have to be, as spiritual, be very cautious of we're grooming, we're bringing forward, not it's got to be this way only. Because I think in religion, there's several shades of gray and white. It's not absolute, because just like I said, God kept reaching in different forms. That's why in the beginning, He's always trying to reach us. And we have to be very cautious as directors, just like, it doesn't go just this way.
Okay, that's a very good point. So hang on to that, because it's not about the guide isn't somebody who's going to tell you or me what we ought to do, because they're going to help us on the journey to know where is the Lord in my life, and where is God calling me. So it's not imposing something. It's a guide, it's somebody, a spiritual guide. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. That was a good point. Thank you.
Somebody who's assisting you, not forcing you.
Yes, it's a companion.
Yes.
In fact, I really like the term spiritual companion almost better than spiritual director, because the director gives you the idea that the director's going to tell you what to do. No, we come together in prayer to see what is God calling you and me, if I'm the director in this situation. What is God calling? And we invite God, Jesus, to sit with us. What is it, God, you want to say? And this whole concept of spiritual direction is not new. Think about St. Paul when he fell off his horse. Got thrown off his horse. What was he told to do? Well, get back on. Yeah, he probably did, but I don't know what they told him. What was the voice said to do? It's supposed to be a little thing right over here. What did they say to do? Where was he sent? He was blind, remember? And where was he sent? He was told to get up and to go to Damascus and go to meet at the house of Ananias. He didn't know who Ananias was. And you remember he was blind for 3 days. But he obeyed and went to Ananias. Well, was he not his appointed director? And Ananias told him what to do. And much as Ananias, was afraid, because here was a guy who was throwing people in prison and persecuting the Christians. Anyway, I don't get into all that, but here's a case where he was sent to this man to direct him where was he supposed to go now. Nicodemus came to Jesus in the middle of the night, did he not? He was looking for direction. He didn't know. Here he is, a Pharisee, Sadducee Pharisee. He didn't know what direction. Here's this man that's challenging his whole world. He came to Jesus. What did Jesus have to say? Help me. Give me direction. How about the woman at the well? Was she not looking for water for her thirst? Jesus knew that she was thirsty for something much deeper. I want to say here, what about on Emmaus? Were the disciples on the road to Emmaus were not very downhearted, whatever, of this disastrous thing that happened, the crucifixion, the death, that God was going to save the world, and them from Roman rule? And what happened?
Were not our hearts burning?
That was before, but what happened before their hearts burned? You're right. Well, what made their hearts burn?
A stranger visited them that they
Who
didn't
came
know.
to walk with them?
Jesus met them on the road.
Jesus met them on the road. And what did he do? The first thing he said, he didn't say, now, you know what I'll do, you know blah, blah, blah. What did he do? What did he ask them?
Where are you
Why are
going?
you sad? Where are you going?
Who are you talking about?
What were you talking about? See, Jesus wanted to know where they were at in their journey. Jesus couldn't say, well, you really should have done it. Like we said, you don't impose. Jesus didn't impose. He said, what are you talking about? And then they pour out their hearts in terms of all the things that are happening in their life, and their world is shattered and falling apart, and they have no idea where to go. Talk about depression. They had no idea where to go. And so only after that, then Jesus begins to say, oh, didn't you realize? Talk about the different perspective. Jesus recalls scriptures from the Old Testament all the way through and says, didn't you know that this is what it was about? So Jesus brings in a whole different perspective. They're only seeing the death of Jesus and the terribleness of it and the crashing of their dream, of what they thought. Jesus brings in a whole different perspective in terms of the life of the scriptures. Isn't this what was meant to happen? So he's bringing in a whole different dimension from the scriptures, which they would have probably known. Then, Sister Gregory said, did not our hearts burn when we were talking to him? And maybe you've had an experience of some kind of an encounter where you felt that the Lord was present in that moment. There was a sense of presence. Okay, so this is not new. Pope Leo the 13th, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because I think this time is short here, but Pope Leo the 13th, that's back in the 1890s, referred to the advice of the great saints to give on the matter of spiritual direction. So he talked about Francis de Sales. Do you seriously wish to travel the road to devotion? If so, look for a good person to guide and lead you. And there's quotes from John of the Cross, from Teresa of Avila, and contemporary people. We need a guide, just as we said on the Adirondack trails, we need a guide. So, we probably had lots of guides in our life. The first one I think was our parents. Were they not guides in our life? How about teachers? Some think of people who have been guides in your life. Parents, teachers, maybe that you've had a particular interest. I was thinking this the other day. Maybe you took up a sport, whatever the sport might be, whatever what sport is. You kind of learn the things of the details of it, and then you just play it for a while. But then after a while, perhaps it gets to the point where you think, you know what, I really want to know more about this. I really want to get better at this. So you kind of go along in the path, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I really want to know. So I hire somebody to be a guide. And I was thinking today, there are different kinds of guides, and I have a sheet that is very complicated. So I'm just going to say, some people, if you're going to, you want a trainer, a personal trainer. Have any of you ever had a personal trainer? And what would be a reason somebody might look for a personal trainer? Physical. Pardon?
They know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing in that area, right? And maybe you're preparing for, maybe you're going to a K5 run or whatever. You need to get in condition. So you want somebody who can help you. So it could be golfing. You learn things on the journey with your companions, whether it's horseback riding or golfing, whatever the sport is. You learn from people, companions. But then there's sometimes when you realize I need to know more. Then, just recently, we had somebody who was working, I could ride horseback, and I've been riding all my life. But I realized there were things I needed. I was having problems with this horse. And I realized I needed to go and get some help to work with the horse, but I realized that I'm the one who needed the help. I needed to learn more. So I learned a whole lot more. I was fine just getting on and going, but I learned a lot more because I wanted more. And so, sometimes if we have emotional kinds of things, we're having a hard time coping with the situation. And we recognize, you know what, this is just, I just need some help. I need some help with somebody to help me to, not to deny my feelings, but how can I use the feelings as a messenger to help me to live my life as a whole? I've gone to a counselor before. To be able to integrate and to learn how to deal with emotions so they're a part of my life, not something that's over here, but it's something that helps me to live life more fully. So the focus is on the psychological dimension of my life. What about a life coach? Anybody ever had a life coach? You heard about a life coach? What's a life coach? Anybody want to tell me? I see some heads moving. What's a life coach?
Basically somebody that you talk to and get, in a more secular sense, just sort of get everything organized about what if you want to change your career, if you're in a career, how you can be more effective in your career and in your relationships or whatever, just from a very coaching perspective, and just coming from the concept, not that you have a psychological condition or whatever, but who are you and how do you get your needs met?
Thank you. Perfect. So the focus is more on career and kind of coping in the sense of, and it's not so much coping like the sense of the emotion or whatever, but it's trying to get a sense of what am I doing, where am I going, what do I need to do in order to do it. Let me tell you, I met a young man who was working for the correction officers, as a correction officer. And when I met him, he was saying, you know, I'm really thinking very seriously of changing my career and becoming a physical therapist. But that's the kind of thing, like he had to figure out all kinds of questions in terms of his interest, his ability, where's he going to get the training, how much is it going to cost, what's the salary versus what he was doing. That would be a life coach kinds of questions. And I said to him, where is God in all that? I didn't even think about that. That would be the question of the spiritual director. It's looking, and I noticed you used the word secular. The life coach,
Intentionally.
you can bring a spiritual dimension, but their focus, their expertise would be in the sense of how do you manage your life and discern that and all the details. The question for the spiritual dimension would be, where is God? And I'm sure you have been doing that in your own life. Because you wouldn't be here if you weren't thinking about where you are in your life and what brought you here. That's a discerning kind of thing. But is it a question you say, where is God? What does God want me to do in my life at this moment? That's a spiritual question. So it doesn't deny all the other things, the physical, the emotional, the intellectual. The spiritual is putting it all together. What does God want? So, how many of you have had a spiritual director in your life? That's what? Okay, you bring up a good point, because the spiritual RCIA sponsor would be a companion who has lived the faith, but they might not necessarily have gone on to get training in a degree or whatever, training in it as an expertise. But you're right, there's the companions, and we do have companions on the line. We have faith companions. And we learn from each other when you're sharing, like in RCIA. Maybe you're in a scripture group, maybe you're in a book group where you're sharing. These are all ways of having companions on the journey who can share with each other what's happening in the world. Anybody want to say anything what your experience is, Tony? I saw your hand.
Oh no, I thought you asked who had a spiritual director, and I did. And we were just in our group, and it was interesting that we were all on the same page as far as, you know, comprehending the mystery of our faith in the light of, you know, what the challenges of the world and direction. You know, we came out with, we're going to need a spiritual director our whole lives. And a faith companion is good. I liked what he said as well. If you have a friend or somebody that you can talk openly about your faith and have a good listening ear, that's great too. I think we all were in agreement, and I feel I'm always going to need a spiritual director at every stage of my life. You know, it's not something I've gotten to a plateau where, okay, I'm all set.
Okay.
Maybe I could be, we could help each other as well. I think it's kind of works both ways, right?
Absolutely, thank you, because I think what you're saying leads us into the next thing we're going to talk about is when and why. Yes.
I was just gonna say, when I did have a spiritual director, one of the things that I enjoyed was they don't, they challenge you. So they challenge you. So sometimes it's easy to kind of get very complacent in what you're doing, and you kind of think, oh, I've got this and I'm doing it the right way. So it's nice to have somebody that's gonna make you look at it from a different perspective. As we talked about going up the mountain and pointing something else out.
Thank you. Makes me think, when you're talking about what might spur me to think I want to get some help on this journey, when I might want this help. I just want to share this little story. You've probably all heard it before, but people were coming from Europe. It was a family, and they were emigrating across on the boat. And they brought with them all the cheese and the bread and everything. You know, this is back in the 1800s, whatever, probably when some of our grandparents came over here from Europe. Anyway, they'd eaten up all the food that they had, and it was very sparse, and you know, the trip was very long. And one day, the little boy came back, and they couldn't, well, first of all, they couldn't find him. And they finally found him up on the top deck, and there was this magnificent thing. And I said, oh, you gotta get back here. This is not for us. And he says, no. He says, this buffet is for everybody. And I said, really? And so, this was part of what the cost was for them to travel on this ship to get there. So, it was there. They didn't know it, and they didn't know that it was possible for them. Well, I think sometimes you and I are satisfied and think with our peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, that's all there is. It's okay. But God has this incredible banquet of so much richer, powerful. Do you know how many times in the scripture it talks about a meal and about good food and drinks and whatever? How many times it talks about this banquet? I think you and I, at the top of this mountain, is this banquet of communion with God and everyone. And so what you were saying, so sometimes we just have that feeling that we want something more. What might prompt you to feel like, I think I'd like somebody, I need somebody to be with me? More than the person who my best friend will share my spiritual journey with, but somebody who's outside of that, like the life coach or the personal coach, who has some expertise and knows the dynamics of the process of spiritual growth, the mountain. What might be a reason?
I think sometimes you internally are troubled with where you are. Not sure where you're going, but you know what needs to come.
Okay.
I kind of look at this spiritual direction. Like a compass, the compass always points forward. We always need to be pointing towards God, and the spiritual director needs to keep us, you know, even though you can look at a compass, it's always, north is always that way. You need to be steered around to where you need to go.
Powerful, thank you. That's a great example. Great example. Thank you.
But
that's where the scriptures, but also the spiritual writers, the spiritual masters. They live the life. They know where the pitfalls are. They like the guide. They know where the pitfalls are. They know what the direction is. They know the stages of what you're going to go through. You know, that discouraging level, and when things get tough and whatever, and they keep encouraging you now that there's something more. Or you need to let go of this because something else is happening, like Jesus did with the disciples. So the spiritual masters and classics, there is a particular path. I've taken 6 semesters on the spiritual classic writers in my graduate work. And after we read all these spiritual masters, I began to say, you know what? Basically, they're all saying the same thing. Because the journey in what you're saying, the how-to, and the difficulties and the encouragement and whatever. So why are there so many different ones? Why do you think?
Lots of ways to do it.
Lots of personality. Look at us right here. They're what? 18, 20 of us right here. And so what might be your favorite spiritual writer, you might say, oh, I don't like that one. Oh, but you know the one that really touches me is. So thank God he inspires different people, not only for their own personal journey, I'm thinking of Teresa of Avila and some of the great saints and mystics, not only for themselves, but they're called to write it down for others. That's why the spiritual writers are so helpful, because they have struggled on the journey and they've learned it. And so pretty soon you begin to see